Well, everyone's getting ready for the big solar eclipse that's occurring on April 8th. So that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about what house it's occurring in and how is this going to affect the collective. That's what we're going to be focusing on today. For those of you that are new to my astrology channel, welcome. Make sure you like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get all of my videos. I do videos, monthly predictions, or I make videos for custom events like this, the solar eclipse. I also do a lot of videos on celebrities and in particular the royal family. So if you like that, make sure you subscribe to my channel. And also, this is Vedic sidereal astrology. Just so you all are aware, so the solar eclipse is going to be happening in Pisces using the Vedic sidereal zodiac. All right, so let's go ahead and first let me show you where the eclipse is happening using an astrology chart so you can get kind of an idea of where this is happening. Let's go ahead and pull that up really fast for all of you. So here's the astrology chart of the day of the eclipse, April 8th. I did adjust the time though to a few hours before just so that we could have the first house be Aries. Okay. Now remember, in Vedic astrology, or even all of astrology, even Western astrology, Aries is considered the first sign of the zodiac, and then Pisces would be the 12th sign. So that's what we're looking at, especially when we're looking at global predictions. We're looking typically at the natural zodiac, unless we're looking at a specific country, where we're going to be looking at a specific country's birth chart. Now, the solar eclipse is actually going to be occurring in the 12th house of Pisces. Okay, so the moon right there and the sun, they're going to come together. And then Rahu, remember, it's always associated with a karmic node. That's what Rahu essentially is. Rahu's the shadow that crosses over the sun or the moon. In this case, it's going to be the sun. So in the ancient lore, that would be Rahu. Now, remember, the eclipses typically happen on an eclipse axis. So, for example, on March 25th, the lunar eclipse occurred here in the sixth house of Virgo. And then the solar eclipse is going to be happening here in the 12th house of Pisces. But both of these eclipses are really affecting both sides of this equation. So even the solar eclipse that's happening on April 8th, I want you all to be aware that it's still influencing this side of the equation. And the sixth house, as many of you are aware, represents things like conflict, warfare, and things like that. So that's something to be considered. The 12th house and 6th house are both considered the Dashtana houses or evil houses. In Vedic astrology, the evil houses are considered 6, 8, and 12. And so, the eclipse axis is influencing two of those. Okay, can only affect two houses, so it's not going to be able to influence the eighth house as well. So I'm going to pull up a few slides. Let's really break this down so we can really understand as much as we can, because there's so many escalations that are happening in the world, especially in the last week. There's been even more escalations in the Middle East. And then, of course, Eastern Europe is always, in the last few years, has been having some escalations as well. So let's go ahead and break that down. Let me take you to the slideshow. Oops, we went to the wrong slide there. Let's pull up the slideshow here. So again, April 8th. Now it's occurring around 11:30 Pacific time. That's when the maximum eclipse, around 11:30. So, that would be 2:30 Eastern time. And then you'd have to, factor in those of you that are in Europe, you'd have to factor in when that's going to be happening for you. But it's going to be, most people are going to be experiencing it on April 8th. It's a total solar eclipse, so that means it's powerful. And the path of totality is going to be happening in North America. Remember, with eclipses, it's been said that if you can see the eclipse, or if you're in the country where the eclipse is happening, or that part of the world, it's even more potent. Okay, so the eclipse is very potent, but it's going to be influencing everyone around the world. Now, one thing I want to bring up, in Vedic astrology, historically, eclipses are not seen as positive things. So I know there's a lot of more of the new age kind of philosophy of it's a good time to set your goals for manifesting and things like that. But in the ancient times, they more viewed these as bad omens. So typically there was this idea of exercising a lot of caution around the time of an eclipse. So I tend to trust what the ancients say about this. Now, the reason why it's a time to exercise caution is because, like I say here, the shadow Rahu passes over the sun, which represents the soul. So there's an interruption of the light of consciousness, whether that be a lunar eclipse with the moon or the solar eclipse with the sun. There's this idea of there's an interruption there of that light, and that light is the light of consciousness. Now, let's talk about the 12-6 axis that the eclipses are happening on. So remember, the lunar eclipse on March 25th happened in the 6th house of Virgo. The solar eclipse, which is happening on April 8th, is the 12th house of Pisces. Let's talk about the meanings of that so we can kind of get a little bit of an interpretation. Now, I do want to say, just in general, eclipses can trigger all sorts of karma. So right now we just had a recent incident in the Middle East, and there's various actors that are vowing revenge and things like that. Well, happening around the time of an eclipse, it's a very volatile time. So I would take everything that's being said very seriously. It's right in the middle of an eclipse. Okay, so when we're talking about eclipses, we need to really realize that, actually a couple of weeks before the eclipse, and then even up to 30 days after the eclipse is when it's going to be the most powerful. So we are in the middle of the really intense energy right now. So let's talk about the 12th house. The 12th house is a house of karmic reckoning. So it represents things like karmic completion and endings. That's why it's the last sign of the zodiac. So we have to realize that a lot of unresolved issues from the past are going to be surfacing during this time. If we think about the conflicts that are happening in the world, these are really long-standing issues that haven't. It's not like it's a recent. Yeah, at least the ideological conflict isn't recent. So that we're dealing with issues that are rooted in the past, and that's what the 12th house represents. So that's what's bringing these issues to a physical like culmination point. The 12th house is also associated with self-undoing and hidden enemies, by the way. So when I'm thinking about hidden enemies, this can be things that shock us and take us by surprise. Hidden enemies, things we didn't see coming. And it's going to be a time that represents losses, setbacks, endings. I also want to point out that the 12th house has a really interesting interpretation of other worlds and like outer space and things like that. So that's just something to point out as well. The 12th house of Pisces is a very mystical type of sign. Also, remember the 6th house is being activated. So I did want to talk about that for a moment. So the natural 6th house of Virgo it can reflect all those things that I'm saying in the slide. So societal unrest, civil unrest, conflicts between nations resulting in widespread suffering, displacement, humanitarian crisis. We know those are happening already. And this is going to tend to exacerbate these situations. I don't feel like these eclipses are necessarily bringing the remedy to these situations. I feel like it's kind of more bringing out the karma that's kind of exacerbating or escalating these situations. That's what I feel like these eclipses are. But the ultimate purpose of it, I mean, we can get metaphysical here. The ultimate purpose is to bring it to resolution, but we kind of have to go deep and bring out the full karma of the situation. The 6th house is also associated with military service, warfare, conflicts on a larger scale. So I mean, this eclipse axis is going to be bringing up more of this kind of stuff. So if anything, I would be saying to all of my viewers or those of you watching this video, this is more of a brace for impact kind of time. Like we got to be on the lookout. We got to be very cautious about the energies that are involved right now. Okay. This isn't like 1st house and 7th house. This is very tough houses. This is 12th house, 6th house. Now, like I said in the slide, the eclipses are powerful points of karma. Okay, so crazy events, they happen during eclipses. The world is facing more dangers than ever right now. I think the doomsday clock is like, and maybe some of you can comment down below. I think it's like the closest to midnight it's ever been. So we're in a very volatile situation, and I don't want to make light of this at all. If anything, with this video, I just want to let you know that this is a very serious time. This is a very history making point. For example, some of you may have heard of this book called the what is it called, the Fourth Turning. And the book, they discuss that every 80 years we go through these cycles of intense change. And essentially, the last turning occurred during World War II. So it's almost like we're having this reincarnation of these events that happened in World War II. Well, we're having that same shakeup in the world happening right now. So you think about it, all these world players are kind of coming out, and there's this like reorganization of the chessboard, or at least we're in the early stages of, okay, is this, who's going to be, who are going to be the major players in this world order that are showing up. So this is what these eclipses are bringing out. These eclipses are bringing out some difficulty. Like I said earlier, I said, unfortunately, the eclipse cycle suggests more of an escalation of conflict because of the eclipses occurring on the 12-6 axis. I see that. And then also remember in the USA chart, USA is in Sadi Sati right now. Remember, that's when Saturn is transiting over the natal moon. So the US is definitely not in a good astrological transit. And I don't have the chart to pull up at the moment. But if you go back to some of my past videos, you'll see that it's in a very dangerous or difficult time right now. The 12th and 6th houses are associated with losses and debts. I also want to point out, for those of you that are interested in the financial astrology, that the 12th and 6th house are of course, negative indications in terms of finances. Okay, so for example, the 12th house suggests losses. So when we're talking about losses of finances, economic losses, economic downturns. That's what the 12th house would be associated with. The 6th house would be associated with debt. So like a debt crisis or something like that. So those negative aspects are being highlighted as well. Now, what I've been feeling like, I do feel like this year, because of the Saturn transit through the sign of Aquarius, which is the natural 11th house, I do feel like there's going to be a financial crisis. Now, could the financial crisis be triggered from some events happening as far as conflict around the world? And yes, absolutely. So, we're just kind of like at a point of what will be the trigger. Now, Saturn in the sign of Aquarius, it's trying to find a resolution to a lot of these deep problems that are being faced around the world. For example, there's a cost of living crisis. There's a food crisis, there's an inflationary crisis. So Saturn is trying to find the remedies, but unfortunately, a lot of times the remedies only come when there's a crisis that occurs. So I feel like we're in a very volatile time. And I've been seeing a lot of news reports of like, world leaders that are upset, and we're really in a serious time. So in the next few days, I wanted to release this video because in the next few days, we could see some serious news events happening. So I just wanted to get you all ready for that. And of course, take care of yourselves, take care of the family, take that day to, the best thing to do in eclipse, if you don't have to work, is to kind of just relax and stay low key on the day of an eclipse. In fact, in the ancient times during eclipses, some of the ancient yogis would meditate in caves or would find a way to be in solitude or isolation during these astrological events. Now, maybe metaphorically, maybe we can do the same thing. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you all think down in the comments down below. And of course, be safe. And I will be seeing you in the next video. I'm going to be putting out a video in the near future with King Charles and an update on how the eclipse is going to affect King Charles. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.